All right, everybody, we got Jason here from Canada.
Hello, welcome back to True Reality Disclosure. My name's Jason DePatty, and welcome to episode number 3. If you haven't already, please go back and watch episode number 1 and 2, as this is kind of a continuing journey. Also, if you like the material, please feel free to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that, so thank you very much. Alright, so to kind of quickly recap the last episode, I was talking about how I was going through my emotions, the events and prodding emotions, my triggers, and kind of going right in there just to see what the core of the issue is. I also kind of ended the episode with a little bit more of the relation of those to your actual body. What are those emotions in the closets actually doing to your body, and the process of releasing them? What does that do to the cells and everything within you? So today we're going to get a little bit more into quantum mechanics, physics. I'm going to bring you into a quantum level, and obviously I can't do that without mention of some famous scientists in the past as well who dived into this. So, but I think this is going to be a fun episode for everybody, so please enjoy. So quantum, in general terms, is a Latin word for amount, and in modern understanding, means the smallest possible discrete unit of any physical property, such as energy or matter. So quantum came into the usage in the 1900s when a physicist named Max Planck used it in a presentation to the German Physical Society. So quantum physics is actually quite an old science. It was talked about and grasped by scientists like Nikola Tesla and Einstein. But today, you don't really see much of this in our current education system. You might touch a little bit of it here and there, but it doesn't seem to be that relevant, considering how actually important it really is. It's a whole understanding of what our reality actually consists of, how it works, and even the understanding of gravity isn't quite clear, except in a quantum understanding. So, why is this? And how come we never understood it? Well, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole just yet, but what I can do is just give you a quick understanding of the general concepts of what quantum physics is all about, or quantum mechanics. So please pay attention and enjoy the little bit of a skit I will show you. It's a little 3D video that I think really describes this aspect very nicely, and it's called the double slit theory. So please enjoy, and yeah.
And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. But physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched. And it was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange, never world of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it gave you a little bit more clarity in the understanding of quantum mechanics or physics. So what I want to kind of do from here is talk a little bit more about some aspects about that video. In the one aspect, the character ended up mentioning a wave of potentials when they were shooting the individual atoms. Well, this wave of potentials, all the equations seem to sum up that the atom went through one and the other, but then not through the other, through none, and then through both. So all of these things are waves of potential. So every cell in your body has these capabilities. What that simply means is there is no direct line for where anything is. It's uncertain. But what makes everything certain would be the power of the consciousness. That's harder to grasp right now, but you have to think of the entire universe and everything in existence as energy, waves, frequencies, And the only difference between, let's say, the skin on my hand to the bones within my hand would be the vibrancy, the frequency at which they resonate. My skin vibrates at a certain frequency, and my bones vibrate at another frequency. And that, in turn, down to an energy level, creates the differences in the physical world here. So, what actually connects all of these together? Because nothing is really solid, is it? I mean, broken down to the smallest aspect, everything is energy. And energy isn't solid, so what are we missing here? Well, the aspect of this really kind of comes into play with a modern understanding of where scientists kind of currently sit. They have been trying to work on an equation that solves everything. Now, this equation has been worked on since Einstein days, and even before, I believe. This equation is the be-all, end-all equation for everything. But here's the issue. They've solved it, and now they have more questions. The aspect of science and scientists is they create theories, and a lot of it is theory until they can prove it real. Like gravity is still a theory. It is not quite understood fully, and yet this theory is just passed as we all understand, and we all agree that gravity is a force down. It's a little different than that, but we can get into that at a later time. But what I'm trying to say is our understanding of our reality is not quite at all what we think it is. And these unities of all of these atoms are actually agreements. It's kind of bizarre when you think about it that way, but every cell has a potential to be anything. And in that video, when the scientists put the camera on and the atoms did what they should be doing, that was the expectation of what the scientists were looking for, what they thought it should be doing. Thus, the atoms did exactly what they thought. 2 strips. But when you took the camera away, the wave continues because your focus isn't on that anymore, so it could be anything. Now, this brings into the concept, if a tree falls in a forest, do you actually hear it? Well, is there a forest if you're not in it? Now, this is a very large question because, yes, the world is still in existence and I'm not part of anything, but in my world, this part of the world exists, and I'm not sure about the rest of the world. If I travel there, it will continually develop. But this is where the mass consciousness comes into play. It's not just one individual conscious that is making all of these agreements. It is everybody and everything that is doing this. It's such a larger scale. The closest thing I can relate this is in the movie Avatar, when the scientist was looking at the roots and finding the connections, trillions to the trillionth connection, that the entire planet is one living organism. Well, that is Earth. Earth is a big living organism, and we're all connected with it. But this is a connection that is way deeper than we could have even ever imagined. But we're slowly catching up onto this, and the more awakened and understanding that you're able to get, it's easier to start seeing how a lot of this voodoo stuff that was once unknown is now starting to make a lot more sense. I'm going to show you a couple quotes. This first one from the physicist Max Planck. I'm also going to show you another quote from scientist Niels Bohr. So as you can see, the realm of quantum mechanics and physics is very unknown. The fact that scientists are still today trying to prove an example that is very as accurate as they possibly can, the absence of the conscious, the spirituality in a sense, I believe is what is going to hold them back until they marry the two together. That at that point, I think the full understanding of how this actually works will be unveiled. And the technologies at that point are just going to go astronomical. So that's where I see where we're currently at. The mainstream sciences are not really entertaining this aspect, but there is a lot of scientists that are fully aware of this. I'm also going to show you a couple quotes from one of my favorite scientists, Nikola Tesla. He's not very well talked about in school, but I believe he is one of the most important and influential scientists that has ever lived in the entire human history. Here's a couple quotes I'll share with you now. I believe Nikola Tesla was a little bit before his time. He had a very wide understanding of a lot of things, and he never really narrowed his vision per se, because in the quantum aspect, you really have to start understanding that you don't really know too much, because nothing's solid, nothing's material physically in a sense. It's something different. So I believe he approached this in a very open mind, which allowed him to become connected to another portion of himself per se, a higher version of himself. Whether that may be true or not, there are some claims that he was making communications with an alien source or another planet. Now, this is still highly stipulated and argued, but I do believe that he was able to have such an open mind that he was able to have no restrictions within his body. He was clear, and through that, and intuitively, he was able to create some of these designs and intuitively get this information. I believe that he was really unlocking something that the mass majority of people had no idea of. This was all very, very foreign way back then. Still today, this kind of aspect is still somewhat frowned upon and still questioned by the general public. But I believe that is changing very quickly, and it's growing in a positive momentum. As we keep talking about this and more people start waking up and understanding that the reality is a little different than what they realize, then this is going to catch on, and more people are going to understand this and be able to use it themselves. So what does this kind of have to do with the human body, thoughts, minds, emotions? Well, I'm going to save that for next episode. I'm going to make this a two-part episode. This part I want to focus mainly on the quantum aspect and try to get some ideas out that scientists have been talking about way back when. Next episode, I'll dive more into the body connection of that and what you can do, how it all kind of relates, and hopefully something will click for you. Please feel free, do your own research, come to your own conclusions, and have your own opinion on certain things. It might take you somewhere where you may not realize or never even thought you could go. So I just think for yourself, and please just don't take everything that I'm saying for granted as is. It's not, it's just my opinion and what I've researched, and I'm just conveying to you. So I hope this makes sense, and I hope you're following along with what I'm talking about right now. So oh my gosh. So they've been working on an equation that has been trying to solve everything. So Max Planck used it in his presentation when talking to somebody. Quantum came into the usage in